This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good night, Leslie Allen. How are you doing on this wonderful, beautiful night?
I'm actually okay.
Well, that's great to hear. What part of the world are you in right now?
I am in Morristown, New Jersey.
All right. And which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this specific time in history?
It could be any one of my many talents, but I suspect it's because my background is professional tennis.
Sweet. Yeah, tell us a bit more about the type of tennis you play and the journeys you've conquered.
Well, the type of tennis I played was some of the best in the world, because when you compete at Wimbledon, the U.S. Open, the French Open, the Australian Open, etc., and you're ranked as high as number 17 in the world, you kind of know what you're doing on the tennis court.
I think so.
And, in the era when I played, which was the early 80s, there had been a gap of women of color on the tennis circuit. And I actually was the first woman of color since Althea Gibson in the 50s to win a major tennis event. So my hurdles were not as high as hers, but trust me, a sister out there, in those years on the tennis court, there were hurdles to climb over.
Well done. So who did you learn this ability to go out there and even being in the minority, still stand and represent your talent, your skill?
I would have to say it came from my mother. She was way, way, way ahead of her time. And when she saw there was a need, she took care of it. In the 50s, when you didn't see women of color in magazines as models, she started her own modeling school and had her own modeling fashion shows and agencies, and part of her pitch for her models were that her models reflected real women, including plus size women, anyone from someone who was in the boardroom to a housewife. So when I look over some of her early literature about her modeling school and fashion shows she used to hold in the 1950s, it looks like 2019 has caught up, finally.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Well, it's more that now we're more likely to see women reflected on the runway and in advertisements that look like real women. And my point was that in the 1950s, my mother was already doing that. So the fact that I wanted to play a little bit of tennis, that was nothing. That can be done.
So why will you continue to be that person? That person who is a trendsetter, if you would.
Why? Are you asking why do I continue to do that?
Why will you continue? Of course, you can say, no, I want to stop. It's too much work. But why will you continue nevertheless?
I think it's ingrained in me to absolutely give your best effort at whatever you do. And I think the most shocking or eye-opening for me is not everybody feels that way. And when you spend a good part of your developing years around elite athletes, and we were about trying to build the game of women's tennis, Billie Jean King was still around and a mentor. It was all about doing your best all the time in everything that you did. And now, out in the business world, if I'm away from the sports arena, I realize that not a lot of people have that attitude. If they can get by, they just get by. So sometimes that's quite perplexing for me to even fathom.
What are you doing now professionally?
There are two things that I do, both that I love equally. One is residential real estate in Morristown, New Jersey. So anybody wanting to buy or sell, I'm your girl. If you're in New Jersey, a home. And then to stay connected to tennis through a program that I developed called Win4Life, I work with athletes and young people and even young business execs about helping them develop their life skills so they will be absolutely impeccable in all that they do off the court for athletes or as they traverse the business world, whether it's business etiquette, how to present yourself. And so that's always an eye-opening training, because I often tell them, if they're the athlete, the coach is more interested in their attitude than their aptitude, and you better make sure you have a good attitude and you can present yourself well, because if you don't hit another ball or shoot another basket, those things, a positive attitude and being able to present yourself well, will go a long, long distance.
Where's the best place for someone that's listening to connect with you, Leslie?
I think the easiest way would be through my Win4Life site. Well, it's actually two ways. Win4Life site, which is the word WIN, the number 4, lifellc.com. There you can read all about what we do. And real estate, westendresidential.com. I'm one of the agents in that company. So whether it's Win4LifeLLC.com or West End Residential, that's where you find me.
All right. Tell us one other thing that you've done consistently over the last 3 years, please.
Over the last 3 years, I have consistently grown my business in real estate, and I have consistently reached out to more young people and done more motivational speaking. So it's kind of been a great marriage of the two things, and it's been a good balance.
How does that make you feel looking back from now to then?
I sometimes wondered how effective I might be in balancing the two, and I'm glad that I do the two, because just at that moment, maybe if I'm getting a little bit annoyed at a knucklehead athlete, I'm dealing with my real estate clients. And just when maybe I could potentially be frustrated with what's going on in a particular deal, I can go out and share some wisdom to a young person. So it's a great yin and yang, keeps me centered.
Suggest to someone that's listening why they should do what you've done by ensuring you have that balance in the mix of both professional and purpose, yeah? Mixing professional with purpose.
Well, I think you really have to have purpose in order to be authentic. And, if you go through the motions, people are going to tell you go through the motions. But once you are your authentic self and really love and believe what you do, the rewards are great, and you are just happier.
Love it. Well, amazing audience. Again, you're hearing it live from Leslie Allen. As she said, you can connect with her at win4lifellc.com. And tell me the website again for the real estate.
The real estate is westendresidential.com. And I'm on the roster of the agents, so you would have to specifically look for the agents to find me. Both of them will give you emails to direct to me. Some actually have phone numbers that are direct to me.
Okay.
So there you are.
All right, Leslie. Well, let's switch gears for a moment now. Let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Leslie, what's your earliest childhood memory?
I don't really know. That's interesting. I think that we had a black ceiling.
How old were you in this memory?
I'm sure I was under 3.
So why do you think this memory is so clear?
It just was odd. When I look back and then talking about things, it was a space that I just remember that somehow.
Intriguing. So what, are you laying on the bed looking at the ceiling, or did you just get into the room?
I was in a room. It might have been the studio room where my mom had the modeling school, but I just somehow remember that.
All right. Let's put some creativity to this. How do you see that memory connecting to who you are today?
I really, really don't. Other than when I would talk about that it was a black ceiling, people were like, wow, that's odd. So oftentimes when I walk into a room, I can see the surprise on people's face when they didn't expect that I looked like how I look. And
Explain that. What do you mean by how you look?
It really depends on what our conversation has been.
Right.
How informal or colloquial I've been in my conversation with them, that they may not know I'm a person of color.
Oh.
They may not know I'm just about 6 feet tall.
Wow.
There's always that kind of element of like, oh. And so, of course, when I showed up at the tennis courts, I got that. And, I met an agent today for the first time. She may or may not have known I was a person of color, but I'm sure she didn't realize I was 6 feet tall. So when I rounded the corner, I could see her like, oh.
Dang.
So I was like, oh, a black ceiling. Okay.
Oh, there we go. You just connected it. That's super cool. Yeah, that's the first thing that popped into my mind. Like most of the time, ceilings are really white.
Exactly.
And to see the uniqueness in what that represents, you being a black, well, you are saying color, right? In the Caribbean, we would say is a black woman, right?
Exactly. but it's more, it speaks to my mother being thinking forward and out of the box. So, who had a black ceiling?
I could just dig a bit deeper. Can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind then with that memory? What it takes to highlight more. So a black room is then lit perfectly to highlight what you want to from a photographer, right? Mm-hmm. So just to see that the base is black then, and to see that you've stood as the base for so many other aspects of life is what I would connect it with.
Sounds good.
If we fast forward to when you were 12, what was your favorite song?
It had to be a Motown. Could have even been some Stevie.
Hit me one song. Come on.
I don't know.
What song pops to mind?
Well, now that I've said Motown and Stevie, I'd have to go with quintessential Jackson 5.
All right. I could take that. All right, Leslie. Well, we've arrived at our destination. But before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. So it's yes or no. We're going to move pretty quickly here. You ready?
Yep.
Leslie, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
All the time.
Are you married?
No.
Do you have children?
Yes.
Do you believe in God?
There's something there.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
Absolutely.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
Don't have the time.
How about 3 hours a week?
Oh, yeah.
What about screen time, the phone and the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
Hard to say. Depends.
If you had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents Leslie Allen, what would you say that is?
Off the top of my head, I would go back to be authentic. It's so much better.
This was such a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
No, just glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, I appreciate you passing by, having a conversation with a guy in the Caribbean. Leslie Allen, thank you for being on what is inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
This segment has been brought to you by Avon Enterprises.